Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're excited to talk about a major shift happening in retail, agentic commerce. Today, we're not here to talk about AI features in commerce. We're here to talk about something much bigger, and that is AI agents, the new buyer. Not just assisting, not just recommending, but influencing and executing purchasing decisions and how that changes the structure of retail. Joining us today are Guillermo Delgado, our global AI leader, and Martine Lewitt, SVP of Corporate Development and Growth at Nissan. Martine will walk us through the business implications of this shift, and Guillermo will explore the technical and architectural transformation behind it. At the end of the presentation, we'll have a Q&A session, so please save your questions for that time. Martine, over to you.
Welcome everybody, and thank you, Vera, for the very nice intro. I gotta say, I'm very excited about this one. We do a lot of different webinars, and I think this is a very pertinent one because we'll talk about things that are happening, but especially, I think we're gonna hear about things that are coming in the near future, and some of them hopefully a little bit further away. And to be honest, I'm really excited because I love to share panel with Guillermo, who I look up to when it comes to AI. So I feel like a guest honor that not only gets to hear him, but also gets to provide some input. So when we're talking today is, as Vero nicely said, is about agentic commerce, right? And one of the things that I'd like to put right up front is that within our commerce, within our commerce journeys, right? Behavior has already started to change, and I think many of you have probably seen it or read about it or somehow draw similar conclusions. But putting some numbers to it makes it very apparent. For one side, almost half the users, the 44% that you see up there, are already tried AI-powered search, and many of those use that as the primary method nowadays. Now, if you've been using AI-powered search, you notice how the transaction to get you the results is different. Now we can start seeing that if the more people use this, the more that is going to influence that buying journey, right? And today, almost about half of all of our digital shopping starts outside our retail channels, right? That is, you start the journey either through search, sometimes through AI assistants, sometimes in marketplaces, sometimes through channel engines. So the result of that is that our storefront, that e-commerce or that physical stores that we've been building for decades, and making more optimized, efficient, friendlier, many times is no longer our front door. And people don't find us through our own storefront, but they find us or they start a journey in a different place, right? And if we move to the next slide, Vero, sorry, what that implies, it's also, or why that is relevant is because that is going to be a ginormous new, the change on behavior is going to be a huge new channel. McKinsey estimates that by 2030, AI agents, and I'm sure Guille will go a little bit more into what those AI agents are, but basically autonomous decision maker AI capabilities will mediate up to $1 trillion of purchases in US retail alone. The number triples or quintuples if you look at the global scale, right? That is not just influence on the margin. It's not like a small piece of the pie, right? That is the capital, the transactions happening through a different layer. So when behavior starts shifting, then you can see the capital or expenses or transactions shifts with it. So we're looking into a structural transformation, a disruption, if you will, like we had in the past with e-commerce or the new e-commerce 2.0, and the numbers speak for themselves, right? So what we're going to try to do today, we have the privilege of having Guille walk us through it, is like, how does this work, right? Who are these agents? How do they work? What does that imply? What does it imply for us? What do we need to pay attention to? If we believe this is the future, then where do we need to start looking? So, with that as a brief intro of what is happening and why it's important, Guy, I'm going to pass it over to you, and hopefully you can shed some light on this new commerce channel.
Absolutely. And thank you very much, Martin. And I love as well to share this kind of spaces with you. It's great. So let me tell you where we may envision that there is a risk. How come a risk has become, part of our lives today in retail? Uh, it's something that probably is happening behind the curtains, but it's happening. Let me tell you how. For instance, one of the earliest and oldest way in order to get information for retailers was scraping the web. And when you were scraping the web, many times you were trying to get as much information as possible to compare, for instance, prices, to compare features of the products and services that you offer. But now, no longer is a person that has to, to digest that scrapping results. Now it's an agent. And it's happening without our intervention. Inside OpenAI, there is a nice tool that is web search. Actually, you pay for those tokens using web search. So for an agent that has some difficulties in order to access your web page, because you have created, let's say, a ton of features on security. You have high, the pricing in order not to be available to the competition. But that is worse because the agent is going to discard at once your website. So probably now you have to facilitate not the human intervention, but as well, but on the other hand, you have to facilitate the life of agents. How can we get here? I mean, it's something that has happened along even the last months. If agents cannot interpret your systems, they are not going to be able to process the information that you have in front. So now we need to see that there are three major, let's say, forces that are happening in this stuff. The first one is that agents now are the ones who are influencing your products and services. Probably you have used ChatGPT in order to create a short list of potential products and services for buying even a tennis shoes. It's no longer the Amazon, interface. Now it's our, beloved friend ChatGPT. So this is actually what's happening. Is what Martin said about 44%, of this kind of interactions with retailers are now somehow AI is part of that. Protocols are now being standardized. There are nice protocols. There are even, protocols like MCP that are capable to interact between heterogeneous and disparity infrastructure. And finally, and it's something that is totally at the reach of the hand of even, my mother that is 92 years old. So she's now an expert doing some retailers, search. So the integration barriers now are lower, prices are lower, and there is a huge disruption that is happening in the whole retail sector. If we see in the following slide, that has been evolving from human control, total human control, journey up to autonomous coordination. So if we now envision that the agents are the ones who are, operating on our behalf, what happened with the classic, storage of the user journeys in our e-commerce sites or our web pages? where we try to store as much as possible any detailed transaction where the human, enter to the site, how he progress along, the options and products. Even there are face recognition in order to understand how, likely a human is going to be able to buy or not. But now that is not the case anymore. Is there any market research around agents' behavior? What is now entitled to conduct a focus group regarding a new product and service? Are humans going the ones who are going to be invited to that party? I don't think so. And how are we going to, which are going to be, the new drivers for agentic behavior in order to buy products and sources from products or services from your website or your offer? So this is moving forward. The delegation of authority in making decisions has gone from humans and now to agents. If we follow this trend, there is something that we need to remark here. Comparing in the following line, you will see that we need to state, please, in the following slide, that the big difference between those two journeys is that before, the assisted commerce, where human was part of that process, was optimized by using this kind of tools. But now, agentic commerce has eliminated that journey. So you should ask yourself, how is that going to, what kind of technology is going to support the whole infrastructure? Well, actually, it's going to be a party of agents working probably in a nice architecture that even we don't have to worry about how to create that architecture, because it's going to be architecture as a service. That is the next frontier. And those are going to be plugged into different LLMs, different tools. And even I have built something that is to my mobile phone. Please, I love tennis, and there are really nice sales whenever there is a new, ball or a new racket. I love Wilson. That's sorry for advertising, but I love Wilson. I am totally, this application help me to stay updated around the new sales, totally autonomous. While we are, talking about agentic commerce, someone else is looking for new opportunities for me, for my Wilson racket, for my tennis balls. So that is the challenge retailers are facing today. So there is another disruption in that journey I will tell you in the following slide. And that disruption comes because there was a well-known stage, and I bet you have, probably when you went through Amazon and you filled your cart with probably 10 different products. And I bet you 8 of those products are totally useless, but we always buy from them. But with those 10 products, the moment of truth comes between that cart and the checkout. And there is a human psychology process. Yeah, I don't know if that is going to be some sort of, you're trying to reflect yourself if that is actually useful for your buying process or not. But there is a probability that a cart is not totally converted into an actual purchase. But now the checkout is no longer something that is going to be rationally or irrationally decided by humans. It's something that the checkout may become programmable. And in that case, where the checkout becomes programmable and the UI and the UX is no longer, the decision factor for your retailer, the infrastructure is going to replace everything. Why infrastructure? because probably the architecture is going to be more efficient on finding those sales for you, or that architecture is capable to replenish your refrigerator with the groceries that you require, or because the agents already know your let's say what kind of product or what kind of gadgets you like the most. Now is something between agents and retailers. I'm talking about the agentic commerce that is going to happen in the next 5 years, increasing to up to $1 trillion just in US. So if retailers has been the disintermediated in that journey, and agentic has become, the gateway from humans to commerces, where we can play, how we should play the new rules that the market and AI is bringing to this equation. And this is something that we are going to discuss in the following couple of slides. So just to summarize and to reinforce the idea, Veronica, please, in the next slide. The interface no longer controls the buying moment. You will see a fast evolution on most of the e-commerce sites, and I bet you Amazon has already started with that evolution. Amazon has probably, zillions of functionality, feature, filters, comparison, many times I read the opinion from buyers of a particular product. I see the stars, how the scoring of that product, but maybe the next interface is going to be a prompt like ChatGPT, and just that is going to be it. That is going to reduce the barrier for purchasing, but now you will have an agent or an agentic infrastructure or agentic architecture responsible for addressing your needs. So it's no longer where you place that button in your webpage. It's no longer what colors are you using. It's no longer understanding, the human journey on the websites. It's no longer making focus groups. It's now talking about agents. Probably we are going to migrate from know your customer to know your agent staff in the marketing department at the retailers. But I will give you some brief in this, somber future. And let me tell you that in the following slide, Veronica, that the control is not lost. Veronica, please, the following slide. The previous one, please, the previous one. That the control is not lost. Why? Because even when we have discussed that agents are going to take, the frontman show here in this agentic commerce, physical stores and e-commerce and other channels are going to have a different role in this mix. And you will have some kind of convergence between agentic AI, agentic capabilities, AI capabilities, and how the new role of a physical store is going to play in that, transactional relationship between customers and retailers. Probably physical stores are the ones who are going to be kind of a display just for showing products or testing products and services. It's going to be your next, let's say, market research tool. And having a lot of sensors and monitoring systems, is going to be able to understand and probably to feed the model that is going to try to replicate the rationale behind how you have defined an agent. Remember, when you create an agent in any kind of application, you have to define even a personality, a contextual, let's say, information where you say, for instance, you are an expert retailer provider, or you are an expert, buyer, where that you are specialized in sports and in tennis, in my case, no? So you are going to give examples. Why do you prefer Wilson over let's say well, Babolat rackets? And that rationale is going to be learned somehow between quotes by agents, and those kind of decisions and those kind of agent definition are going to be the next frontier for other agents to try to interpret what those agents has been defined, or how those agents are going to be processing information. So there is a new word where this kind of between quotes, all channels, all places, moments for the 360 contact of a customer with retailers are going to play in that new scenario, in that new market. In the following slides, we will see that agentic commerce is going to rewrite retail unit economics. Martin, I will give you, the chance to give some good news for our attendees today.
Thank you, Guille. That was awesome. I have the challenge, Guille, because you introduced tennis, which is not my sport at all. I am definitely a soccer guy. So we might go back and forth on the sports here. My knowledge of tennis is limited to when I took classes when I was probably 10 or 12, which was way too long ago. So we'll go from there. But yeah, so it's very interesting, right? And as most disruptions and large changes, and definitely trillion-dollar market it's a large change. It comes with a lot of challenges, and I think he did a fantastic job of putting some of that forward. But it also comes usually with a lot of good opportunities, right? So there is a reason behind why this is happening, right? And many times, as you always say, you follow the money, right? And then, so when you look at the retail unit economics of what this might imply, there's three key areas. I'm sure there's more, but I think, personally, there's three key areas where you can see a deep impact in what you can expect, right? For example, there is that 25% or expected. Oh, we lost the presentation, Vero. That's all right. I can keep talking without the presentation. But the first one was the 25% lift in the conversions, right? A lot of the friction when everything is autonomous and automation, a lot of the friction disappears. And without friction, hesitation disappears, right? So if you have an agent, as Guille put it before, it has its own personality, it follows its, the way of thinking, you gave it the right instructions, it evaluates, it selects, and executes instantly. So that hesitation that we have when we go through the purchase process, all the long time it takes for us to compare, understand, and analyze, it just goes and executes. So that means no more second guessing, right? No more like, wait, I like this one, but let me go look if I can find these other things. There's no more abandoned carts, right? If you have the right infrastructure behind, that mediation is happening agent to agent, as we saw in that timeline. As part of this is going to happen in the future, that agent to agent, there's no abandoned cart. There's no, I put the wrong address. There's no, the link didn't work. It's just instant, and that quickness or instantaneity that happening at the right moment gets you conversion lift, and all those efforts into the experience side of the conversion translates to the infrastructure side of the conversion. Similar thing with the lift or the challenging the payment authorization lift, right? These would probably go directly into margins. Agents can optimize the payment routing and reduce manual errors. There's no more, I put the wrong card. There's no more long path of authorization. as agents are talking to agents, we can eliminate a lot of the cost of the transactional part of the purchase power. And as you know, when we're talking about this large scale, right? When you're talking about $1 trillion, or if you reduce it to a specific part of the market, even a small gains in the authorization cost are going to become significant. And we know that that is kind of, just the cost of doing business. So any lift in there could be very significant. And probably even more relevant from a cost perspective is the expected reduction in the support volume, right? Fewer failed payments, which we already talked about, fewer incorrect selections, which we talk about in the conversion lift as well, less ambiguity in the transaction. That means less support, right? And those support costs can quickly add up. So yes, it is a challenge from where we are to where we need to get, but there are counterparts of why this makes sense and where we can do, right? So obviously, if this changes our experience from the user experience, the nice interface, to how do we remove friction from the transaction layer. And this is going to become about the right data, the right infrastructure, um, the right enablers to support this new kind of commerce, right? As we needed to learn when we did e-commerce about customer journeys and about digital journeys and about user experience and customer experience and channel integration, now we're going to have to learn about the different layers and data availability and infrastructure to support it and agent enablement and so on and so forth. And that the good news is we're probably at the right time to start doing it. And then as friction drops, your unit economic improve. A similar case that we had before, if we did this a couple decades ago about your e-commerce front and going digital, right? So then the question becomes, if we go to the next slide, the biggest challenge from a business perspective is that the decision power is shifting, right? So now the buying moment, I will actually say the buying journey is no longer human-led. And I know that sounds like a lot. This is not today. Not all the purchases are agent-led. Probably in the future, not all purchases will be agent-led either. And same as AI adoption, some journeys will adopt it earlier than others. But what are some of those implications? So we start thinking from our perspective of what do I need to do to take advantage of this, right? This means that discovery is shifting. Now, that shift means that it happens in a different place. It comes from a different channel. It needs a different discoverability so we can be there. But not only does this discover change, but where is it captured, right? And how is it captured? And what drives that demand capture also shifts, right? If you don't have a human making that long decision process, comparison, bringing some bias, and very influenced by the usability and the things that we value, then we need to understand what is relevant for the agent to be able to make that transaction. Transaction execution becomes different, right? So we kind of have to have a different infrastructure and availability and think about it differently. And probably this is a layer where we can get a lot of efficiencies and optimization. And probably one of the most challenging aspects of it, right? If we have even a slice of our overall volume going agent to agent eventually, or agent assisted first and agent to agent eventually, how do we create value and loyalty, right? And that is probably a ginormous change, and it's going to go from most likely usability, loyalty programs, and different factors that we invested a lot over the time to create to who has the right infrastructure, who enables the right data, who has the capacity to take advantage of this. So today we give our credit cards, which is right there, either to our significant others or our CFOs. And what if tomorrow we're giving it to agents? We need to rate that infrastructure to make sure that we do it the right way. And all jokes aside, I know that we're not actually giving credit cards, but software is becoming an economic actor. So it's not just creating efficiencies inside our companies. It's not just being a pilot that we're automating some processes that were manual before. They are now becoming an economic actor in the sense that they're making economic decisions. And that's when we need to start understanding how that affects our model so we can make the changes and preparations to make sure that we can take advantage of that. So I will say in conclusion, Barry, if we move to next, it will be hard to think that this agentic commerce is just a trend that will pass. Estimations of impact are too high. Unit economics are too powerful. AI implementation has been too widespread. And this is kind of a next logical sense. We are probably nowadays in that AI assisted part of the journey. The logical evolution is going to that agent to agent commerce. And that's where you can start seeing that disruptive side of the business, right? Right now, we're all dealing with how do we get discovered? How does search change? How do people come to our stores? We got to start thinking, how do we execute commerce when there is no storefront? Other storefront happens outside our normal channels, right? It is not where we browse to, it is how it's executed on the machine to machine, or it won't be browsed, it will be delegated. Someone worked really hard on that slide, so if I don't say it, it sounds like we didn't go through it. But I think it's very accurate as well. So just to close up and open to the Q&A. Pero, thank you. I think that the good news is we are at a point where we can start getting ready. The pace of change for AI has been very rapid. Anyone who's in the industry will tell you, either in technology or retail, or to be honest, in any industry, the pace is very rapid. But in agentic commerce, I will say a lot of what is happening today is more on the AI assisted, and then we're exploring these new opportunities, at least at high scale mainstream, right? So where are we doing the next 6 months, 12 months? This is definitely not a 5-year roadmap that we're saying, hey, we got to start doing the planning. No, this is something we probably need to start thinking about as soon as we can, right? So are our system ready? Are our processes ready? Our people ready? Do we have agents that can execute within guardrails that we define? We need to deal with those guardrails. We didn't discuss that as much today because it was more on the commerce side, but those are very relevant and become super important, right? So the buying moment is shifting. We need to be ready. So hopefully this gave you a glimpse of where we see this going and where we are today and why it is important. With that, we thank everybody for joining us. I know there's already some Q&A questions in our Q&A, so we're happy to go through them.
Yes. Thank you, Guillermo and Martin. Let's start up the Q&A. All right, so first question here. If the interface is being replaced by infrastructure, how does a brand maintain customer loyalty or brand equity when the transaction becomes invisible and happens upstream?
All right. Yeah, I see you still muted, so I'm going to take a brief take at it, and then I'll let you add to it. I'm gonna say something that you're probably not supposed to say, but I wish everybody knew, right? This is changes that are happening right now, and we are trying to deal with it. My best guess, or my interpretation of the trend is in many right now, that loyalty was created by your user experience, your customer journey, your incentives, usability, right? Integration of your different channels, all that needed to be very well or very aligned so you can gain your customers' loyalty, right? So you got to think the same way, and what creates that loyalty, quote unquote, on an agent, right? So an agent is going to look for the right data. How easy is that transaction to make? It's going to look for the right infrastructure, the right security path, the right transactions, so the same way that we created that customer journey, we are probably eventually going to start thinking about that agent journey or agentic journey, right? And that is going to be more on the building the right technology enablement so you can have those transactions. And my best guess is that's what's going to bring more loyalty in the agent era.
Okay, I think that's a really very smart answer. But I will give you another, dimension from a different point of view, from a technical point of view. The web search from OpenAI is somehow has parameters. For instance, uh, if it's looking for a website and is not capable to reproduce an answer or scrap information between 3 seconds, it's going to give you 3 chances in order to get that. And if that is not the case, this is going to discard totally your web page for the next, iteration. What that this means? So the first loyalty is going to become more technical than to actually, customer behavior. Uh, who knows that remember the times when you were totally redundant to publish your prices publicly. And then e-commerce appear, and you have to place, your prices in order for a user to understand how much a pro was cost, or how was to compare offers between different providers. Now, I believe, for instance, if you are capable to create an API that may be plugged directly using an artifact to LangChain, and that may facilitate the ecosystem of architecture to provide, let's say, product, let's say, support or product search. This is something that's going to be appreciated. So my first take on this is that probably the first loyalty is going to come from facilitating the agents to get the information they need in order to produce recommendations. Okay, that's the first one. Pero there was another question for Ana Carolina that is related to this. That was the first question that we got. Uh, is this really happening now? Yes, it's happening now. Um, of course, it's going to be a progressive, adoption on that, but it's happening. 44% of these are somehow, uh, assisted by the AI in the moment and the journey for purchasing for people. So this is happening now. So loyalty first is going to come from my point of view, from technology. The second technology dimension is going to be compatibility. Maybe if you create some API and also services that may facilitate the artifacts that size in all these, frontier models and frontier providers, and also open source. Open source is a huge movement. Just take a look on Hugging Face. 5 million downloads of Llama, just Llama model, and most of them are totally related to retail. That's our best market research, in what is happening right now by coders and different offers in the market. Mhm.
Thank you. Next question. What is the security about identification to know about what agent is good or bad while it's buying?
Hmm.
And it's all you,
Yeah,
Guille.
okay. Well, actually, uh, let's define good and bad, because this is going to be something that is a personal belief that over the time, models are going to drive society in order to adopt probably some trends that are going to be shared by millions of people. So, uh, what is good or bad for the people? I mean, when you're talking about good or bad, I think you're talking about is it efficient or not, Um, well, actually, if there is some parameters that are used in order to understand, the functionality, capabilities, accuracy of any agentic architecture, including, for instance, human-like behavior, and the latency in order to reproduce an answer. There are almost 14 or 15 different parameters, and you can find them in Hugging Face. There is a nice scoreboard of different parameters evaluating this kind of technology.
Just gonna say very briefly, thank you, Ian, but security clearly is going to be a big part of any implementation of at scale agentic commerce, and this is a big shift. And just like in any big shift, there's a lot of things going on, right? So just like we did a lot of security when digital transactions started, we need to rethink it, right? So I'm going to assume, right, a few of the things that you read around when you start reading about agentic and what's going on, right? So most likely agents will have its own registration and will have parameters of what they're approved to do and not to do. There's probably going to be monitoring when the agent comes into your store, quote unquote, or your marketplace or whatever it is where those transactions are happening. We're gonna control or monitor how is the agent behaving, right? So if it is registered, it's gonna have some parameters. Is it acting the way it is supposed to be acting? Most likely, as this scales, Aguilla, you alluded to these at the early stage of what we were talking about the agentic, right? Each agent is gonna have a limited scope, right? An agent, unlike a person, which as person we have a very broad scope of decision making. The agents by nature are limited in scope, right? So if the agent is allowed to do those things, there's going to probably be limits. Number of transactions that they can do per time, per day, per category, per geography, and so on. We might look at behavior monitoring, right? How fast it moves, unusual SKUs that are being used, unexpected geolocations, and things like that. There might be some tokenization in the payment methods. I mean, there's going to be a lot. It's probably going to be a long list, just some top of mind, but clearly, right, we're going to start setting those boundaries to make sure, as they were saying, I don't know if it is good or bad, but there are like authentic agents that are executed on behalf of a mandate and not just like rogue. And there are probably going to be challenges like we have today, right? We do have cybercrime, and we deal with that, and we have big cybersecurity teams at our stores to make sure that we keep them safe.
Thank you. Um, let's see. As autonomous AI agents increasingly make purchasing decisions on behalf of consumers, how can brands influence buying behavior when the customer is no longer human, but algorithmic?
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So algorithms, for instance, have something that in social media times has been, embraced influencers, TikTokers, bloggers. They know how to manage in somehow, the algorithm. They discover how that behavior was produced, and they created very creative, things. Like, for instance, um, they ask for half a dollar, payment, 10 cents payment into their channels, just to activate the algorithm that YouTube has behind, So it was not just a matter of the amount of money they were receiving; it's how they trick the algorithm in order to reproduce more views or to attract more followers to the channel. So I do believe there is going to be agents capable to trick agents in order to improve both sides of the equation, retailers and as well buyers, in order to create that.
Yeah, and just to add, right, I think we alluded to this before. We gotta, that is kind of on the, active things that we're trying to do, kind of your marketing perspective on all of this, right? Now, from a infrastructure or how we set up perspective, what I will say is we are moving from persuasion, right? Again, your customer journey, your advertisement, your promotions, so on and so forth. We're going from persuading people to buy to optimizing paths for agents to be able to buy, right? So your new marketing is computational, is rational, is constraints driven, right? You're trying to optimize the path so the agent follow it, right? So you go from your storytelling, your emotion, your advertisement, your brand affinities, your UX, your promotions to, and sometimes this is going to sound hard, but it's going to be about price. It's going to be about availability. It's going to be about sustainability scores. It's going to be about brand preferences by the user, on how was the algorithm was set, right? Delivery times, past performance, reviews, and all that data being available at the right time and the right place, right? So there are a bunch of levers that you can take when you're trying to create that optimization, right? From structure, from having that structured data that is available, easy to read, to, I don't know, agent friendly pricing and predictability. And there's a bunch more, but you got to think that you got to move from persuasion to optimization. So if I will have one place to look at, that will be it.
Thank you. So we only have time for one more question here. I know there's still quite a few in here, so if we didn't get to your question, we'll email you afterwards with a response to it. So last question here for today. If we wanted to start tomorrow, what would be the first concrete step? Where should we actually begin?
Um, Let me take again the lead. And I would love to kill two birds with the same bullet. There is another two questions that are related to that. I would love also to share a little bit what Visa, MasterCard, and other big retailers are doing with this stuff. And Visa has already completed a pilot test producing an AI agent in order that you are capable now to insert that agent into your architecture in order to facilitate transactions. The two main, let's say, objectives for Visa is first completing transactions and have a better control on how a transaction is executed in a retailer. And the second one is cybersecurity and increase the security of your transactions. MasterCard is launching something that is called Agent Pay that is going to help users to shop online for customers. So that is another trend because it's going to compete against retailers. MasterCard is putting themselves as let's say, between quotes, e-commerce place, but through an AI agent that is going to suggest purchases to their customers directly. I don't know if you have seen what Amazon is doing, something is called Buy for Me. And the name is yet explained by itself. Um, PayPal and Perplexity has joined forces, and they are currently working on agentic shopping tools. And this is happening just in the last quarter of 2025. The question is how we avoid losing control of our brand. Well, that is a question that we should, answer a long time ago when social media appeared, with all ambassadors, influencer, and everything that is happening, behind that. Probably one of the answers, we may have Apple as an example. Apple, concentrate in produce the best products in the world in technology. That is their vision, that is their mantra. So it's not necessarily the brand, it's more the product usability and functionality, the one that excels. So this is going to be probably another way to think about that. Sorry, Martin, but I took some.
No, I think that is perfect. I would just add step one, right? So I think that was really insightful, yeah, as always, if I may add. But if I had to start somewhere, right, I would say define your first agent job, right? And choose the right one or two cases. One of the biggest problems with agentic commerce is it feels really big, right? When we say it's going to be agents talking to agents and completing transaction, that whole flow requires a lot of things, right? From infrastructure, from software development, from processes, from sometimes the corporate structure, right? So it's a big change, right? So one good way to start to think about it is start not necessarily with a pilot, because you don't want to end up in pilots hell that you just try a little things. But if you take one full use case and you can do it end to end, it gives you it gives you a fantastic end-to-end view that then you can scale, right? So if you're a retailer, you can start with I don't know, price monitoring and purchase triggers. Or you can create a cart completion assistant that is thought through to find the best version of this fancy ingredient, and it completes the transaction. You have that agent in there, and that agent can talk to support humans right now, but it also should be able to support agents. In the payments, you mentioned Visa, MasterCard, right? You can create an agentic checkout using the new Visa, MasterCard protocols, or whichever protocols you want, and you start gaining in there. So you do it end to end, and don't choose a platform. Don't choose like the whole thing. Get the real use case so you can determine your needs, your data availability. You can select the right partner. You can create the engineering scope. So with one end-to-end full use case, you make sure you have all that, right? So if you don't have and sometimes it's going to end up with like, oh, I wanted to do this whole case and I need to fix all this data. I will say we hear that a ton with companies we're talking to, right? You might go to the engineering school, but you say, I'm going to create this agent, and you realize you haven't defined an agentic architecture and how that's going to scale and so on. So end to end, full scope, scalable, production ready, and that gets you a great place to start. Not only did you get the benefits of implementation, you also figure it out. Because once you do that, right, then you start moving to the agent to agent, and you can start making your product and data machine readable, right? That will probably be your first real life, I am getting ready step, right? You need the clean structure with lots of attributes, data, so machines can read it, right? It's going to be machine ready from inventory, pricing, product attributes, so on and so forth. Think about all of that. And then once you have that, then you can start on your long-term plan. If I would start one way, or one suggestion is do that one use case end to end. Look at the engineering scope, look at your data scope, find the right partner, either internally or in the market, and then go from there.
Thank you. So, yes, once again, that's all the time we have for questions right now. If we did not get to your question, we'll follow up with you shortly after this webinar, and we'll be sending out a recording as well to everybody. And you can follow us on LinkedIn, and please keep a lookout for future events. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody, for your time, and appreciate you sticking out with us. See you in the next one.
Bye.